have control over the left side of your body, while I feel dominant on the right. Oh, let go of that.
Oh, bitch! How about a little respect for the deceased?
Well, sometimes you can't get out and about as much as you would like to. You're stuck in for some reason, like I'm stuck in today. And then yes, you get bored and you get fed up with looking at the same four walls.
He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. Here he goes. Do it. Do it. Yeah. Yeah, get him nice and clean, you son of a bitch. So satisfying. I got it. Now, don't worry. Now.
Ooh, that was quick.
Out of our hidey hole comes the Cinemaniacs once again. Almost sounds dirty, doesn't it?
It does.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.
Sorry, you were saying.
No, I was just keep your hidey hole to yourself, please. At least until after 10.
Until after 10.
So,
There
we go. We have a lot of time to chat. We can talk about people don't even remember that.
I can bore them with tales of my weekend like nobody's business.
That'll be cool.
After we've talked about what's on this list.
Fair enough.
If you would care to begin,
I'd be happy to.
I would love to listen.
Because I did actually get a chance to see. You know, cultural differences are things we're all kind of dealing with these days. And it's going to be pretty tough when an American person meets up with a Pakistani person and strife and conflicts all occur. You're going to have to hope that you don't get caught up in the big sick. So the touchy feel-good movie of the year, I guess you might say, went into this really reluctantly because Judd Apatow was like the big. I really don't like his stuff usually, and this was surprisingly, I guess not surprisingly enjoyable, but it was about what I expected. Lots of different people dealing with issues and comas and what happens when your loved one is in that. I really ended up kind of liking this, not only because it was set in Chicago and they have some Cubs stuff on, but Holly Hunter is always good. Ray Romano, you and I were talking off air that I don't know why I never watched his show, Everybody Loves Raymond, because I like him as a personality, as a person, and he lends a good kind of sort of a sardonic humor to a lot of these situations in this. I was surprised, The Big Sick, I saw trailers to maybe 6 months ago when there was lots of talk about it, and then it kind of went away. And so when this showed up, I had to travel to go see it. But I really enjoyed it.
I think this is somewhat of a limited release.
Yeah.
Now, some of the marketing I had seen was pushing this as a comedy. This trailer that I saw yesterday at the Alamo Drafthouse where I was, made it look more like a comedy drama.
Yeah.
So what would you say the breakdown is?
If it had, I'd say 60-40 drama comedy, because it really does end up being more of a drama, not a like really heavy-fisted, ham-fisted drama kind of thing. But this trailer that we just saw does play it off more lighthearted, and Romano is responsible for a lot of that, and it's appropriate. But yeah, I'd say this is more of a drama than a crama, or drama comes first.
Cromedy.
Yes, cromedy.
It's a crimedy. So, speaking of small personal films about humans and interpersonal relationships, Michael Bay is back yet again with another film based on a toy from my youth. Here we have Mark Wahlberg, Sir Anthony Hopkins, and more up against giant robots that sometimes turn into hot cars and vehicles and trucks and appliances in Transformers.
Take off your
The Last
guard,
Night.
roll it up, and it's ready to be used again, just like an umbrella.
Lots of stuff blowing up there. You'd think I would have liked it.
He gave it away.
I gave it away. I'm sorry.
We try to build slow suspense and
So they
talk
have to
around
wonder.
everything until to keep people tuned in to see what we think of something. You say you like stuff blown up. You say you like a lot of little bits and pieces. Okay, here's the deal for me. I never saw the first Transformers.
Okay.
Well, I saw it as a riff
first
track.
of these movies?
Of these movies.
Okay.
I saw it as a riff track, so in a sense I saw it, but not really. I wouldn't consider that a proper viewing. And I've seen the rest for this illustrious program, and I've never liked any of them. They're just stupid. And if I tell you later today what I watched all weekend and really liked, you'd be like, he's not too discerning about what he watches. This isn't a highbrow guy so much. I've hated the other ones partly because you could never see what the hell was going on. All these Transformers have so many moving parts. I always say it's like, take a gray action figure and put it in a jar full of nuts and bolts and screws and then shake it behind a chain link fence or two, and that's what trying to watch one of these movies is like. And it's just hard to follow action, and they're dumb, and it's a super heavy-handed, lots of gravitas take on something that's based on a toy. Yes, there was a cartoon show after that. I have no love for the Transformers built into me. I remember when the toys came out when I was a kid, and I thought, oh, that's kind of neat, but I never really had any. I thought the cartoon was of no interest to me, the comic book series, on and on and on. So to me, if you try to make a big, heavy, multi-$100 million worth of movie with all this gravitas based on that silly premise, I can't take it seriously. I've never found them to be terribly fun. I don't have any strong attachment to the characters. So in these movies, when it's like Optimus Prime, I'm supposed to be like, oh my God, Optimus Prime. I don't care. It's a robot that occasionally turns into a truck. Right. And for robots that are supposed to be as old as they are, they turn into really new-looking vehicles, which is kind of interesting. And why do they have accents?
You can teach an older robot new tricks.
Why do they have accents?
That's true too.
Anyway, they came from another planet, so he sounds like he's a southern sheriff or something. This is the Buford T. Justice model. So anyway, I went into this movie dreading to have to watch this, to be honest. And I guess I could say it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but I just expected I was going to be actively angry the whole time. Instead, I was just like, how many hours of things blowing up and things bumping into other things and things crumbling from the sky and things breaking into smaller pieces do I have to watch? It just gets tiring after a while.
Right.
I heard a phrase once, there is nothing so boring as being consistently amazed. That kind of applies to this. It's just overkill. It's too damn long. This movie, 90 minutes tops. This is like a 2.5-hour movie or longer. And at one point you're like, oh, that's over. That's a good play. Oh no, wait, what? Now they have to regroup and do something else? 2 more times.
Right.
Wahlberg is in it, but I can't say if he was good or bad. He's just kind of there a little bit. Anthony Hopkins is in it, and I felt bad that Anthony Hopkins was in this movie. It opens in Arthurian times, and I'm sitting there in the theater, and for a moment I'm like, am I in the wrong?
I had the exact
it's a
same
multiplex.
reaction.
Did I sit down in the wrong theater?
Yep.
And I'm quickly mentally going through what other movies are in release that this might be. And then like, no. When they had the opening Paramount logo and the stars flew in it, kind of was a robo sound. So I think this is some kind of backstory. And it's you see Stanley Tucci, the Tooch, as like a drunken moronic Merlin.
Yep.
And they tie it all in. And I did learn this weekend that World War II was won thanks to the Transformers. Now, while we see these times throughout history that the Transformers were helping save lives and steer world history, I almost would prefer that if we've seen more of these movies, that it was something like that. It's like, that would actually be kind of novel.
Right.
Let's see, Transformers in another time.
Well, we saw Wonder Woman save us from World War I.
I have learned this summer that Wonder Woman helped win World War I, and the Transformers helped us beat the Axis. So yeah, it was a whole lot of dumb stuff. Now, this is really kind of a movie for kids or people who like loud noises. So you certainly get that. I saw this in 3D, and the 3D was actually pretty good in this, to the degree where I wanted to look up and see if this was shot in 3D, because Michael Bay is not known for subtlety in his editing rhythms or clarity in what the action is on a screen, and this had a lot more of that than I've seen in the previous films, so I have to give it points for that. But I don't know, who is this for? If you're a fan of the Transformers movies, I guess, if you're coming to this series with this movie, I guess if you don't care too much about story, you probably can follow what's going on. But for me, a lot of the time, I'm like, why are they trying to get the glowing thing? And who is she? And why is this happening? It's like I just didn't overly care in the end. So I suffered through every minute of this film. And see, some people like to feel like they're cool by trashing big movies.
Right.
That's not me. I didn't really suffer through it. I was just kind of indifferent. I just kind of didn't care.
Well, I'd say I agree with 100% of everything that you said, with the exception of the fact that you suffered through 100% of this movie.
I was kind of setting it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I walked out. It's been a long time since I walked out of a movie, but I sat there for all the reasons that you mentioned. But primarily, it's just the and I realize I expect this from Bay, and I often go to some of his films to see all of this stuff, but it's you mentioned the gravitas versus the silliness, and it's exactly that. Either
And when it does try to be funny, I thought it was spectacularly unfunny.
right,
Every single
Mark
time.
Wahlberg grabs this little dragon-like transformer that's breathing fire at him, and he treats it like a little puppy, and I'm like, that was the moment where I said, and I think it's like 35, 40 minutes into it, I said, really? And I looked over at my younger son, who is 16, and loves movies as much as I do, and I said, do you want to leave? And he goes, yeah, let's get out of here. My time was so much more valuable than sitting and watching this dreck that I just couldn't believe how bad it was. I went in, as you did, expecting it to be bad, but I like Mark Wahlberg. Yeah. And he's just painful. I like Anthony Hopkins, and he's so over the top. I was just thrown off by the Arthurian thing that there's this little girl in it who lives in, I guess the Transformers are exiled to this city, this little dome or something like that where they live. And I can't remember all of the backstory. Just start me up with Transformers are out to save the world, fine. But she's like some mixture of Ellen Ripley and a whole bunch of these other super women, but pounded into a 12-year-old girl. But she's like making goo-goo eyes at these little boys and stuff, and there's this weird sexual tension between these prepubescent kids.
The way she's shot when we first see her,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, this must be the female lead, this must be the girlfriend. And then I'm like, wait a minute.
She's like 12.
She's a kid. I'm
Yeah.
a little uncomfortable
Yeah.
with how that was shot when you first see her. And then eventually she's just kind of, for my memory, kind of forgotten. She's kind of along for the ride, but doesn't really do much later.
I can't tell you about that.
Well, that's true.
Because I hit it out. So I can't talk about the whole movie, and I refuse to really comment on it, because as I said before, like with Wonder Woman, my favorite movie of the year thus far. Boy, yeah, I thought it was boring as all get out, but not stupid. And this was just, I guess, unless you're a real fan of the Transformers and you can figure out what's going on in this story, I was dumbfounded at how stupid this movie was. And you know, I guess if the next one comes out and we have to review it for the show, I'll go see it. But wow.
And that's another thing too, is I read somewhere, some punk wrote somewhere and got my hopes up, the final epic chapter in the Transformers saga. And part of me going into this was, let's see how they wrap this up.
Yeah, let's please.
And it is not.
Really?
Well, I mean, after how much money it's made this weekend, it just might be. But it is, they give you a final scene that's like, ooh, this is what's going to happen next. To which I was just like, oh God, really, another one? And a very odd end scene where Optimus Prime in voiceover says all of these really like inspirational things to the audience. Oh, you weren't there. You
That's
weren't
right.
there.
I wasn't. So.
We all have to work together. It was like the end of a G.I. Joe episode, or maybe it was the end of a Transformers episode. I never watched it, where he was like, you know, now that we've settled all this, we have to put aside our differences and work together for the common cause. And it was just like, yo, Joe, at the end of the movie.
Wow.
Anyway, the Transformers is often considered, in Michael Bay's films in general, to be skewed toward a male audience. But there was a film this weekend that I hear tell was probably more skewed to a female audience.
Oh, I think you'd have to probably say that. Nicole Kidman and Elle Fanning lead a group of women in the Civil War era, and they're all having a real fine time, except for that the war's going on. When a Union soldier comes in and he's injured, and they have to try to take care of him. A lot of sexual tension occurs, strangely enough, after all of this, as these ladies and this guy all kind of become the Beguiled.
Water, please. So I get water.
He's not a misogynist. He was talking about the dogs.
Right, exactly.
The dogs were upset.
What were they doing to him?
They left him a gift in the bed.
That's right.
So I am a big fan of the original Clint Eastwood version.
Okay.
Don Siegel, I believe, 1971.
I think you're right, yeah.
I have not seen this, as it is not in wide release. So I look forward to your thoughts on the
Been
film.
a long time since, obviously, the Clint one, which I remember, I know I saw it, but I didn't remember a whole lot. He obviously plays the Colin Farrell role. And this one, I went in, this is getting a lot of talk. Sofia Coppola directed it, and she's done a lot of stuff, and she's pretty well respected, I think, as a director. I love Nicole Kidman. She can just stand there, and I'll pay money just to see her stand there and talk. Elle Fanning is a wonderful actress. I was going to say little actress, but she's not little anymore.
She might even be taller than you. And that's not casting a sturgeon upon you.
Well,
I'm just saying she looks like she's a tall girl.
You can
Lady.
cast asparagus
Woman.
wherever you want to. But so this one I went into, I'd heard, or at least something led me to believe this was going to be sensual, very erotic, and it certainly is. It plays very much on the eroticism of Colin Farrell, and these women, and how they find themselves attracted to him and vice versa, and how he ends up, no spoiler alert really here, kind of using them, and how they decide to get back at him. So I thought performances all were really good. It's wonderfully shot. It looks beautiful. It's got a great feel of the South in many respects, and the era. So production value was really good. Certainly not a guy's movie. There's not a lot of stuff blowing up. Is it a for want of a better term, no insult intended, chick flick? Because they certainly turn the tables, as we might say, perhaps. But I think really, if you're going to go see this, you're looking at for the performances. I thought it was real solid, a very solid drama, and I think we're going to be seeing nominations here and there for this come the end of the year at the Oscars.
I'm very curious to see this, to compare and contrast based on the other
Right,
one.
and again, I can't remember the original well enough.
It looks like it's a fairly straightforward, it's straightforward telling. It was a long weekend. It's like 9 movies I saw last weekend. It was a very, it looks like a very straightforward telling of the same tale. So I'm really curious to see if it veers at all, or if it's just basically a new, take on the same
I think
material.
probably the latter, yeah.
So that's all that we saw that is new in theaters currently, available to you in your local community or for a short drive on the big screen. We thank our friends at the Latches Theater in Brattleboro, Vermont, for sponsoring our Sorry Behinds and showing what they do in a pretty amazing classic theater. We now move on to that which is available to you and yours to view on home video on the device, platform, service, or format of your choice.
However you get it.
It's so complicated these days.
Just get it.
I just take a flashlight and an old Super 8 movie and I
You
do
do
that real
quick.
fast. So first up is a film that I saw in the theater, thus I'm qualified to talk about it right now. And it is a film with an all-star cast, or at least a couple of stars, including Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds and more. And what you looking for when you are on a space station and some little wiggly squiggly thing that you may construe to be, I said construe too, be kind of cute, turns out to be something other than else. Well, my friend, unfortunately, you have discovered life.
He hates everything. He likes it. Hey, Mikey!
Man goes into a bar.
Despite what that trailer gave us,
Yes.
there's no presence of John F. Kennedy whatsoever in the film. And we're watching the trailer, I'm like, so the estate must have, would they have had to sign off on that? Or because he's a historic figure and it was a historic speech,
I would think probably that.
you
But,
could just use it anywhere.
but if it isn't really even his voice, you get somebody to say it. I don't know what the laws are.
What's Von Meter up to these days?
On alluding to making it sound like somebody. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't see JFK too often.
Saw this in the theater. I liked this movie. Now, we step back and to the left. This is Alien.
Yes.
It's Alien. But I could go, well, Alien was at the Terror from Beyond Space, so what are you going to do? But the idea of something on a spaceship picking off the crew one by one is not a new one.
Right.
I did not know going into this movie that that's what it was about, so it was a fun surprise to me. So despite it being Alien, I thought it was a very effective suspensor. There are moments where you're just like, like when you see in the trailer briefly that this little alien life form that they find outside and they're toying with basically gets a hold of one of the scientist's hands who's treating it like a pet and just cripples him, basically. And it was just like, ah! And there was a lot of, you feel like you're in the moment. You feel like you're in this confined space. Oh my God, these people are hosed, and what are they going to do? You mentioned off air, and I'm just going to steal the thunder right away.
Please do.
That we both like the ending of this movie.
Yes.
This ending felt almost like a Twilight Zone episode or the original Planet of the Apes or something. I just liked how it was, that it did what it did.
Right.
And I kind of saw it coming a little bit, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't 100% that they were going to. They do a little kind of a switcheroo that you could, if you're cynically minded, you might see where the movie's going, and if not, it's probably a big surprise at the end. But anyway, I really enjoyed Life a lot. I thought it looked really good, and it was just a good sci-fi horror movie.
It looked spectacular. I didn't know a lot going into it, and so when I realized it was just Alien, I took the opposite approach, and I was angry about it. And so as I was watching it, every time an alien moment would come up, I'd go, oh, really? Nothing else new? Nothing else new, really? There are a couple of surprises early on that are worthwhile, and in retrospect, I think I'm going to enjoy this more in watching it on video and just, as you say, enjoying it as an Alien. You know, you can say homage. I usually figure homage means just rip off, which it is, but it looks spectacular. It's a lot of fun. The effects are terrific, and it takes you some places that you don't expect. The very end trick, as I recall, I was really quite upset about that because I think it's an editorial cheat, as I recall. We're led to believe we're following a couple of actions, and I think editorially it's very similar to, I teach this moment in class and people aren't going to know what I'm referring to, but there's a moment in The Silence of the Lambs that is an editorial cheat. It works great, but they're playing with the rules and it's not really fair, but it still works to the benefit. And this is the exact same thing. You're kind of lying to me, but boy, it's a powerful punch at the end. So while I wasn't crazy about this in theaters, in retrospect, I think it's going to be a lot more fun for people. If they like the science fiction-y kind of horror things on this, I think you're going to have a lot more fun with it at home.
So, I don't have a really great way to connect this.
It's sort of a transition. Well, home, home involves, mom and dad and your family and everything like that. But sometimes we don't all have the together home. Sometimes you're split apart, and that can be difficult, especially for Woody Harrelson, who actually is unaware that he has a teenage daughter until he meets back up with his estranged wife, from whom, I'll keep spitting around at things too, from whom he's getting divorced, or he has been divorced. And so he's a super nice, super honest guy, but life can be difficult if you're missing your kid and your name, traveling along, happens to be Wilson.
Rules. But any way you play, you'll be sure to have a good time.
So this is basically what you see is what you get with this. I like Woody Harrelson. I think he's a lot of fun. We were talking off air. I'm not looking forward to the new Planet of the Apes that he's primarily in because I haven't been crazy about those. But this is a very small film. There's no loads of special effects or anything. It's character driven. His issue, for want of a better term, is that he's just unbelievably honest. And so he'll say, yeah, she used to be a real whale, and those kinds of things. And it's really a film, his film, and he carries the whole thing, but I think he does so successfully. He's surrounded by a lot of familiar faces. You'll have seen them from other places. I'll keep rhyming things if I need to. But they're really good at filling in the rest of the story. This is a story about family and being honest with people and family and friends, and the good and the bad that it can bring you. Because you see he has some issues there toward the end, at least, of that trailer. But I thought Woody Harrelson was really fun, and I like Wilson quite a bit.
So, speaking of quirky characters...
Yes, there are a few.
Up next, we have a film involving many quirky characters. My mouth's been a little quirky today. How about you? Sorry about that. Set in a castle in France, heirs to the fortune of a strange, quirky, eccentric have to do what they can to keep the castle running in his stead while he has disappeared long enough so that they may inherit said castle and fortune. But then, one by one, like 10 little Indians, they start going bye-bye in unfortunate ways in a film entitled Spotlight on a Murderer.
It's very large. I have to try and get back pretty far.
Okay, despite what we saw in that trailer, there is English involved in this. This is an Arrow video release. So, as we like to say, welcome.
It looks spectacular.
Welcome back to the Arrow Video Corner. Tom's about to be injured in just a moment graphically.
It might happen.
And so this is an Arrow release that's been out for a little while. We're playing catch up a little bit here. And it is a film directed by the director of a film entitled Eyes Without a Face. Oh, always right in the haunches. Eyes Without a Face, a.k.a. It had another, the Horror Chamber of Dr. Faustus or something. They had a different title here, but it's a well-known movie that Criterion has out. So this maintains the same quality. That's very artistically shot. It looks gorgeous in this transfer.
Yeah, once again, yeah.
This just like crisp black and white, some really nice shots and setups, really atmospheric. It takes place entirely in this giant French castle with a moat. And it is basically very similar to the 10 Little Indians story. You see this crazy old guy disappears and all his heirs are brought together and it looks like a reading of a will and they're like, well, he's actually just disappeared. So we can't really divide up the spoils just yet. So the stipulation is you need to maintain this castle and keep it in good working order for 5 years. And if he doesn't show up, then we'll divide everything up. So they turn the castle into a tourist attraction. So you see them in the process of recording, period sounds to basically have an audio tour people can go on in this. But one by one, as this is being put together, people meet with unfortunate accidents or not just accidents, and you realize somebody wants to be maybe the sole heir, or maybe they want a bigger piece of the pie in the end.
Right.
So it has the thriller aspect of it, proto-slasher, you could say in a way, I guess. It is also funny and silly at times. And it's just gorgeous to look at. So it was not terribly long. It was shorter than a lot of films I'm used to seeing these days, which was nice. This is a film I'd never heard of until this Arrow release, so this was nice to be able to finally see another film from a director whose big work I know. And not a huge amount in the way of extras. There's the trailer, and I believe, which I haven't watched yet, but looks very interesting, like a half-hour behind-the-scenes shot on location during the making of the film for French TV that was aired back then. So I'm probably actually going to watch that tonight. But I can't say I recognize a lot of names in the cast. One or two faces looked familiar to me, but I'm not deeply knowledgeable about French cinema of this period. But I would say if you like old Agatha Christie type thrillers, or even like Euro horror. This is a little light in the Euro horror realm. This is really much more like a suspense movie. But I thought it was really interesting and certainly worth checking out. This is, as you may or may not know, we get screener discs of these for free, and I don't always keep all the discs. This is one that I will be keeping because I would like to watch it again.
Excellent.
Someday.
Good for you.
So we thank Arrow for that.
Yes.
And that's all that we have to talk about that we were issued or chose to see as far as new releases go. I went to Pennsylvania this weekend. We got time. They tune in for this,
Exactly.
The Mahoning Drive-In Theater, of which I am an employee to a degree, had an event that was put on by Exhumed Films called Animals Gone Wild. And it was 2 nights of triple features of 70s animal attack movies.
Cool.
So night one, we had William Girdler's Grizzly from 1976, which was basically Jaws with a grizzly bear.
Right,
Jaws with claws.
I remember Grizzly.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And then it was, I keep forgetting what the second movie of the night was, and I don't know why.
I can't help you with that.
Well, we'll get back to that. The third movie of the night was Day of the Animals, also by William Girdler, which has this opening crawl saying, there's a hole in the ozone layer, and if we don't watch our step, something like this just might happen. And basically, animals go crazy and start attacking people. And if nothing else, you get a scene of a shirtless Leslie Nielsen wrestling a grizzly bear, and other things. It's a lot of fun. It's a movie I've always wanted to see. It was the one movie I hadn't seen before this weekend, and it's the one movie I slept all the way through, unfortunately.
Jeez.
Night 2 was the film Squirm from 1976
about the worms.
Killer worms, and the director of that film, Jeff Lieberman, who also did Just Before Dawn, Blue Sunshine, Satan's Little Helper, a lot of other things. He was there signing autographs. He had Blu-rays of his movies. He had posters of Squirm. He had the last original rubber prop worm that people were taking their picture with and everything. And he was making wonderful jokes that I will not repeat on this fine program, but I approved of wholeheartedly. He did a little introduction to the film on the PA before the film at the drive-in, and that was kind of cool. Second was Frogs from 1972 with Ray Milland and a clean-shaven Sam Waterston about amphibians overtaking this private estate of these rich people in Florida and the Everglades or the South somewhere. And the third film was Kingdom of the Spiders
with William Shatner.
With William Shatner, which is a heck of a lot of fun.
My cinematography instructor shot that.
Did he really?
John Morrill.
It's a well-shot movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you can laugh at it if you want, but it's a lot of fun. and Shatner is just crazy in that movie.
Yeah, well, he's always crazy.
And you get Woody Strode. And so we did that, and that was a heck of a lot of fun. Great turnout. Wonderful time was had by all. And then on the way back from Pennsylvania yesterday, I stopped at the Alamo Draft House, Yonkers, where that's my indoor, out of town, home away from home. And they were running the roadshow version of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which was Robert Harris, who's a film restorationist, worked on this for decades. Because originally that movie, sit down and spell. Originally that movie was Cinerama.
Right.
Not shot in Cinerama, but presented in Cinerama as what they called a roadshow engagement, which was, it would be reserved seating. It would be a special event. It would go from town to town. It only played in a few theaters in the country, and it was a big deal. Like a lot of big musicals and epics were done that way. So, and it was treated like an event. So you had overture that played in the theater before the movie started, which would be like themes from the film and music and the theme song in this case. And then the curtains would part and you'd see half the movie, and then intermission would come up.
Right.
And in this case, while you were in the lobby or wherever for intermission, there would be police radio calls being played throughout the house that basically continued the story of the film during intermission.
Really?
So
How
all these different various storylines in Mad Mad World, which if you haven't seen it, is about a bunch of people who find out there's 350 G's buried under a big W in a park, and everybody is racing across
the
California.
original rat race.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
They're all racing to get there and get the money first for themselves. So they all find themselves in different perils trying to get there separately. And right at intermission, everybody is just in the middle of some kind of craziness. And after intermission, you pick them up a little bit later.
Okay.
So these police calls would say, you know, Sid Caesar's character, he's doing this, and it basically would update you. And they're funny. They're like as funny as the movie. And this is something that has been lost for 50 or more years because you couldn't see the movie that way.
Wow.
So
they're bringing out like a restored Blu-ray or anything of it?
There's a Criterion Blu-ray out now, which is the restored version of the film, plus a lot of extras, and this roadshow version. So what we saw last night was that. So this is not a re-release of the movie. This theater chose to show that version.
Right.
So I grew up loving that movie on TV and seeing it pan and scan, which it's a super wide movie. So you're talking about a quarter, a fifth of the actual screen you were seeing at any given time on TV. So it's seeing the original image on a big screen, restored, looking great. The stuff they put back into it, the quality varies because of what Harris had to work with. So occasionally you'll see like Asian subtitles. Occasionally it'll be a still because they have the audio but not the video. It was really put back together this way so that somebody could sit down at home and sort of try to experience the closest you could get to the longest version of this movie. Okay. So seeing it in the theater was a little awkward seeing it that way because it's just like, wow, now I'm seeing a still that's a little awkward, or I'm seeing a freeze frame and that's strange. But it was all the stuff they put back in. I can't say the movie suffered greatly without that stuff, but some of it was pretty funny, and it just gives you more time with these characters who some of us have known to love all of our lives. So that was really, really cool. They sold out 2 shows of that film this weekend, which was really nice to see. Good age range. The woman next to me was probably in her early to mid-20s and was a huge fan of the movie and was laughing harder than anybody in the theater, which for me always helps at a comedy if you got a theater full of people laughing. It had something that I love with comedies where one of my favorite moments in the movie, Ethel Merman's in it, and she's very annoying. Her character is very annoying in this film. And she's very bossy, and she's a loudmouth. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to go about dividing up the money. And everybody keeps getting mad. And she says something, and Buddy Hackett gets mad, and he says, blah, 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 and as long as you drop dead. And the place had a huge laugh, and it actually covered up the laugh that is my favorite in the movie, which Jonathan Winters immediately goes, look, we can all agree on that. And then he starts talking. But anyway, I really had a great time doing that. I love that theater, and I would highly encourage anybody who is a maniac and likes to drive to perhaps check out what they have.
You spend a lot of time on the road.
I spend a lot of road time. I like driving. And the Mahoning Drive-In has some cool things coming up this weekend. Is Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3 on film, back to back to back. And I hear tell there may be at least one DeLorean in the house, which is pretty
well,
groovy.
I hear tell there may be Back to the Future Part 4.
What?
Strangely enough.
What?
So, yep, that's what I'm hearing.
How what?
And Michael J. Fox is supposed to be involved, so I don't know.
What?
So that's what I'm hearing. Who knows? Maybe I'm making it up, but that's what I heard from a friend of mine.
Well, I hope not. Anyway, anything else you'd like to discuss?
Not really.
No, me either. Okay, well then. So, formally, shall we declare it an open bridge?
Well, we might let them know that it'll be a couple weeks before they see us, yes?
Good point. It'll be a couple weeks before you see us. We are not doing a show next Monday because this august organization is closed due to the holiday of July 4th. Then
so
we
it's
will
the
be back.
July organization that's closed.
The
not
July,
necessarily August.
No.
Organization, sorry. We have lots of time to ramble, so there.
We have an air conditioner in this room, and we turn it off sometimes, and it's been off for the last hour, and we're getting a little loopy.
Whew.
So, shall we?
We should.
I'm Mark.
I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.